Before we begin, there's a few things that you should be aware of. If you're doing a SIMnet project that is auto-graded, always use the SIMnet project instructions and the start file in the SIMnet project area. That's what you see on the screen right here. It's really important that you get your instructions right from there. Secondly, if you're doing a project that is not auto-graded, such as pause and practice, we highly encourage that you use the instructions in the SIM book rather than the printed book if you have it, because the SIM book project instructions are always up to date. And then lastly, there are slight differences between Office 365 and 2019. The book and project instructions are written in Office 365, and where differences exist, they'll be noted in the project instructions or in the SIM book. Okay, let's begin. Step 1 says to open up the database start file. It's exactly what you see right here. If you're instructed to change your project name, the file name, this is step 2. Now's the time to do so. Otherwise, you can leave it as is. And then finally, step 3 says enable content. If you see this enable content button, simply double click it. And now you can work with this database. That's step 3. Step 4 says to click on the table design button. We need to be on the create tab and then table design. That completes step 4. And step 5, you need to be very careful here how you type things. This isn't a hard step, but it's easy to get tripped up. Also, I have a printed copy of the instructions. That makes it a lot easier for me to literally check off each item, cross it off as I am doing them. That's why I go a little bit slowly. I suggest you do the same, but you don't have to have a printed copy, but it certainly works out well for many students. So in this first area, this first cell, we're going to do 5A. It says type in branch. Then I'm going to hit the tab button, and it defaults to short text. But if you use this drop down button, you can see there's lots of choices. We're going to change one of these fields down the road, but for right now, we're going to keep it right there. So I'm just going to tab over to the next one, and then I need to type in unique branch name, and then I need to click the primary key button. This is very important here. You should be on the design tab right here. If you aren't, click on it and then click on primary key. This will make more sense down the road. Then I'm going to tab. That's going to take us down to the next row, and I'm going to fill out the rest of this information. Be careful on the very last one because we need to change the date, the data type, but most of them are going to be short text. And on the very last row of the table there, we're going to type in exactly what it says with the proper capitalization and everything. And then when I go over to data type, this one is date and time. Really easy to forget that step. Choose date and time, then tab over. Date. The branch first opened. I'm going to do a quick double check of the spelling. Hopefully I got it right. That looks good. So on 5G, it says simply save the document, little save button in the upper left-hand portion of the screen. It's going to say, hey, what do you want it named as? Do you want to leave it at table 1? No, we want to call it branches. So I click OK. That looks good. And then what I need to do here is I need to click the row selector here. I'm going to click up in branch right there, in the branch field, and then you'll see a whole host of choices open up, the field properties down below. And here we need to type in the field size. Might be a little bit hard to see on your screen, but we want the field size to be 30. And then required property or required there. And by the way, if you clicked right next to required where it says yes, there's a little drop down way to the right. You could select no. We're going to choose yes on this one. Other ones we're going to choose, we're going to have to manually make sure that says yes as well. So that looks good for everything. Then we need to click in the address field, and we're going to change the data as per what you see on the table in the instructions. Take your time here because it's pretty easy to miss something. And once again, I need to change the required to yes for a bunch of these, so just pay attention. Once I do address and I get the field and the required correct, I'm going to go down the city and do the same thing, putting in the information in the table. In the state, the field size is only going to be 2. That makes sense because the state abbreviation is two characters. In the default value, we're going to type in CA. I'd imagine this is probably for the state of California, so most people will choose that, so they're going to put that in there for people. Makes sense that the zip would be potentially 9. So we're going to change that. It is required. And then on the very last one, once again, the date opened is going to be just a little bit different than the others. I select the field name there, and then we need, it says in the format type, if you look at the table there, format, if you click in format right there, there's a drop down to the right, and one of the choices is medium date, and you can see how medium date will appear. So I select that. And then finally, the required is yes as well. That looks good. And then the very last step there, it's 5M, says to save this. So I save it. And that completes step 5. Step 6, we need to create an input mask for the zip field. So we need to select the zip field right there. And then we need to click the property box. You're going to see down here, it says input mask. If you click anywhere in that big long box, hopefully you can see that. This is the build button. We'll click it. And then we'll choose zip code. We'll hit next twice, and we need to select without symbols. It's probably defaults on that without the symbols in the mask. If it isn't, you can select it, but it probably is. And then lastly, we'll click finish and then save the table. They have us save this so you get used to saving. Really easy to lose data. We've all done it. You hate to do it with a lot of work under our belt. Finally, in step 7, this is a very similar process to step 6. We need to be in the phone field. Click input mask, same build button right there. And in this one, we need to choose phone number. It's probably already on there. So next and next. Once again, without symbols in the mask like this. And finish. And we're going to save the table. That completes step 7. Step 8, we're going to enter records into the branches table. So what we need to do is we need to be on the data sheet view, and you're most likely going to be on this table. If you weren't, you could simply choose it over here. And if you weren't on the data sheet view, what you can do is on the design tab, there's a choice that says view. Simply select that. And then now we can enter in data. So it wants us to enter in the records that you see in the table in the instructions. Really easy to get messed up, tripped up here. So I'll go pretty slow. Tab is your best friend. That moves over to the next cell to the right. When you get to the state, it defaults for California CA, so I can just tab right over that into the zip and then type in all of that great information. Quick double check. With numbers, I tend to make mistakes. If you hear that noise, you can just ignore it. Going to tab over to the date. I'm actually putting the slashes in there. Then I'm going to tab down and do the same thing. You don't have to put the dashes in the phone number, the zip, it'll automatically do that for you. And there should be one more row of data, Granite Bay. You don't want to take this for granted. Quickly look to see if I can see any obvious mistakes. And you can leave it right there. It can still be in that field. When you save it, it'll lock that into place. So I'm going to save and then close this table. And that completes step 8. Step 9. We're going to modify the department field on the employees table and use a combo box. So we need to open up the employees table in design view. Hopefully you can see this on the video. I hover over it, and there's a couple different ways to do it, but I'm going to simply right click, and one of my choices is design view, and it'll open it up in that view. So click the property box for the data type, and what we need to do here in the department field right here, the data type, you're going to see a drop down arrow. And once again, I'm on the department row there, data type, drop down arrow. One of the choices way down the bottom, it's probably going to be the bottommost choice, is lookup wizard. And I'm going over each step. I'm making sure I do not miss anything. In 9D, it says I want to type in the values that I want. So I will type in the values. I select that radio button, click next. Then I need to click in the first cell right there and type in administration. Click the down arrow. That'll move to the cell below it. Then we're going to type in health and benefits, then the down arrow, finally making sure that I spelled everything correct right there. Looks pretty good. I'm going to click the next button. Need to choose limit to list. So we're going to limit that to the list. And finally, finish. It says save the table. Click the save button in the upper left-hand portion of the screen. And that should complete step 9. Step 10 wants us to verify the existence of a foreign key, and you can read the rest of it there in the instructions. I won't talk about it to save time. But it wants us to open up both tables in the design view. So I already have the employees table open. So what I want to do is I need to right-click over the branches and click that. So now we have the employees table and the branches table. And we need to be on the employees table. So make sure you're on the employees table right here. Where it says branch assigned to, we need to add that text exactly the way you see it. So right after that, space bar, then the hyphen, then the space bar, and I'm going to type in must match a branch branches table. That looks pretty good. Let me make sure I got everything right. This program is really particular with spelling and capitalization, so you have to get everything perfect in order to get a perfect score. Okay, that looks good. In 10C, it says to save and close, so click the save button, and then I'm going to close out both of these tables. Next, we need to click the relationship button, and we need to be up here on the database tools. And you'll see one of the choice says relationships. And it wants us to choose. You should see this dialog box open up. It should default on branches anyway, but branches, and then add. Watch what happens. You're going to see this box open up over here. And then we're going to choose employees, add. See another one. Finally, we can get rid of this show table dialog box. Great. Now, we don't really need to adjust. I guess we could adjust the size if we want. We can make that a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can see this on your screen. We're going to drag this branch over top of this branch. And with my main mouse button, I'm dragging it over and then I'm releasing it. And you know it's branch to branch because it'll say it right here. You could actually change that if you drug over the wrong thing, but I did not. Looks pretty good. So I want to verify that that's right. Moving down to 10K, I need to check enforce referential integrity and cascade update related fields, but not the cascade delete related records button. And I'm triple checking my instructions here. Looks good. On 10N, I click create, and you should see this relationship arrow go from branch to branch. Looks good. So now it says save the changes, and I'm going to click save here, and then finally I'm going to click close. That completes step 10. Step 11 wants us to enter the record here. We're going to add it down below. So we need to be on the employees table here. I'm going to double click the employees table. And then way down below, I'm going to type in this information, 200, and the tab button, tab over. That's actually in there, so I can just tab over. That looks good as soon as I start typing that. 3900. And I can press the down arrow just to make sure that that works. I'm not going to type anything in this lower level. You could have left it at 39, or you could hit the down arrow. Either one's going to be fine, because that completes step 11. Let me just do a quick double check, see if I got the spelling. Everything looks good. Okay, that's great. That completes step 11. Step 12 says to save and then close the table. Step 13 says to open up the branches table in the Datasheet view. So I'm going to double click that. I'm going to click the plus sign. And you should see 11 records there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks pretty good to me. That looks good. Then I'm going to click the minus sign. That'll close it back up. That completes step 13. Step 14 says to preview the data record. So file, print, choose print preview. This is important. Wants us to use landscape. And I'm looking at the figure there. Yep, that looks about where it should be. I'm going to close the print preview button right there. Then we need to save and then close the branches table. That's 15. 16 says to close the database, which is the X in the upper right-hand portion of the screen. 17 says to upload and save your project into SIMnet. And finally, 18 says submit your project for grading. Best of luck, everybody.